What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Uberkooledgarage. On this week's episode, we are bringing in the new project. So Zack's car is here, and we're gonna start getting into it. Start getting parts ordered, stuff like that. So let's dig right in, and hope you guys enjoy. Okay, here's the next project. This is Zack's 68 Ghia. We're gonna get this one running and driving, and then he'll take it back for a little bit, and then he said he wants to do some suspension work, maybe some body and paint stuff. It's actually not too bad of a start, so it has a EJ22 in it, just a little itty bitty motor, no turbo. So we will be getting everything all set up on this one, getting all the fuel lines ran, make the exhaust, get the coolant system done, get the wiring done, stuff like that. While I'm at it, I'm gonna go through, check his brakes, suspension, all of that stuff, make sure the car is safe. That way I don't have to worry about it too much after he takes it. Everything on this car seems pretty simple. I'm gonna keep it very, very simple, nice and easy, and nothing too fancy, too out of the way. This one's pretty much gonna be a really, really nice driver. Nice, fun little cruise around car. So we will start getting into this. All right, so somebody had originally started this swap and did a little bit of work, got the motor installed and stuff like that. So looking underneath the car, let's see, get the light so you guys can see. Okay, looking underneath the car, you know, it's a little dirty. It's been sitting a while. Cobwebs, stuff like that. Nothing out of the ordinary. So, as I start digging into the car further, you can see that the transmission looks new. Everything under here looks pretty good, so new transmission. But they didn't hook up the grounding strap. And then if you look a little bit further back, they did not bolt the front transmission mount in. So that's just sitting in there. Another thing that they did, the clutch line bracket isn't bolted up to the transmission, and they didn't put the clutch line into the trans. So since they didn't bolt the front transmission mount in, I kind of want to go through and double check everything. So I'm going to be pulling the motor out, probably pulling the trans out, make sure the flywheel is in there, make sure there is a clutch, throwout bearing, all of that stuff, make sure all of it is there. If it is there, make sure that it's all torqued to spec. That way we don't have any bolts coming loose or anything like that. So I'm going to do all that. We'll build a transmission raise plate for it. That way it gets the oil pan a little bit further off the ground. I'm probably only going to do a 2-inch or maybe even an 1.5 inches. I'm not sure yet. We'll look at it a little bit further once we get the motor out, stuff like that. So I might have to notch the rear of the rear package tray, kind of. I'm planning on, if I do end up cutting that out a little bit, I'll make that piece removable. That way it's easy to get to the clutch adjustment, make it easier to get to the starter, stuff like that. So we'll do that. I gotta trim a little bit of his rear engine splash guard, I guess you would call it. Firewall, the fancy firewall. So I'm definitely gonna have to trim some of that because as of right now it is sitting on the motor, which would not end well. It would make a bunch of noise, probably rub a hole in the top of the transmission or the block, which would not be good. So I'm gonna have to pull that out, trim it. We'll get all that stuff going, and then as soon as parts and everything start coming in, we'll start putting stuff together and getting it all set up. Got some parts for Zack's Ghia today. I went and picked up two 10-foot sticks of aluminum. So that's 1.5 inch, 1/8 wall aluminum for the coolant pipes. We will be running those underneath the car for the radiator system. Got the adapter for the radiator that will adapt from the radiator down into this pipe here. Got some rubber fuel injection hose lines and some hose clamps for the coolant pipes. So the fuel line is actually going to be aluminum, but this will tie the aluminum into the actual fuel tank and to the motor, so then there's a soft line in between. So that'll work out really good. The rest of the parts should be coming here pretty soon. And I think that's it for now. I think we'll pull the motor out real quick. Alright, so no more motor. As you can see, I pulled the trans out with the motor. Let's go ahead and take a walk over here. I'll show you why I did that. Let's see. So, whatever transmission this is, not 100% sure on what it is, but the way the bolts are set up in this, as you can see, they're all stripped out. So whoever put the motor in had a difficult time too. But if you can tell right here, you can't get a socket in there. Even the starter bolt is stripped out a little bit. Another problem that I see is there's supposed to be a motor bolt there. That's a dowel pin. There's supposed to be another motor mount here, and then the two on the other side are the same as well. So I'm gonna have to run to the store, buy probably 4 more of those bolts. Same thing down here. You might have to order new motor mounts. These ones are super old and brittle, so the motor mount is against the bolt. The bushing is. So you can't get a socket in there, and you can't get an open end wrench in there. So just decided to pull the whole thing all as one unit. Another thing, this was finger tight. Transmission has nothing in it. The shift linkage wasn't hooked up either, so we'll have to address that too. Another thing, as you can see, the motor is super dirty. You have open holes everywhere. So the EGR is gone. The inside of the intake has a whole bunch of crud in it. So I'm gonna have to go through, clean this motor up, try and vacuum out as much as I can, make sure that the intake doesn't have a bunch of stuff in it. The vent ports for the valve covers are open too. So it's pretty much just a cleanup on this motor. Go through, clean up a lot of the pulley system, make sure that all those bearings are good. That way it doesn't throw one of those pulleys off and destroy a motor. So, this is it's a good base, but whoever started it kind of didn't even come close to finishing things up. Things were just kind of thrown together, it looks like. So, no big deal. Just get everything situated. Now that the motor's out of the car, I can go ahead, unbolt the transmission, and now I'm really gonna check the flywheel, the clutch, the throwout bearing, all that stuff. Make sure all of that is good before it goes back into the car. So, and since the motor's out, I can make the transmission plate, get the motor and transmission back in the car, get this situation easier to bolt up, and just start plugging things away, start getting everything cleaned up, good, ready to go, and get it back in the car. Got the transmission off, starter off. The starter was missing the bottom stud bolt right there, so I'll have to grab one of those too. The actual mounts themselves actually don't look too bad. The only thing that I can see is this piece right down in there. So you can kind of see how it's pulled out a little bit. I'm going to look at that because I got to pull the trans plate off anyway. You can see how all of those bolts just rubbed along the block. These ones, the studs actually came out of the adapter plate. The throwout bearing looks new, still has grease on it. You can tell it hasn't been ran. The spring and all that, everything here looks pretty good. The teeth on the input shaft look good. So all this looks good. You can see that they cranked this thing in here. These bolts, these markings on the motor, the trans mounts are the bolts for the adapter plate. So they just cranked it on. So what I'll end up doing is find some smaller head bolts that go on here. I know a lot of people do countersunk and all that stuff. I'm not gonna worry about that too much. one more issue that I do see. Let's see if I can turn you guys around. That says it's a stage 3 clutch. So this thing is going to be really, really stiff. Really stiff. So I don't know what kind of horsepower they think they were going to run through this. My Ghia, I had a stage 2 disc or clutch and just a regular disc on it. Nothing too fancy, and that held 300 plus horsepower with no problems. Shredded the tires before it would even come close to burning the clutch. So this is rated for way more, like 3 times more power than what this motor will ever do. So the clutch might be pretty darn stiff. So I'll talk to the customer about it, see if he wants the super heavy clutch or if he wants to replace this with a stage 1, maybe a stage 2. I would probably tell him probably a stage 2, because the clutch, my clutch in the Ghia was really not too bad. So I'm going to take a peek at all of this wiring that came with the car. This is the entire harness from the donor car. So I'm going to look at this and then probably send it off to the company. I need to make sure that it has a couple things before I send it off. So yeah, I will check all the torque on all these, make sure the actual clutch is good. Actually, I'm going to pull the clutch, make sure the flywheel is torqued, put the clutch back on, and then pull the motor plate and start making the raise plate. Alright, so flywheel was torqued. They didn't clean the clutch surface, so it was a little dirty. Pulled a ton of dirt and grime and stuff off of both sides, the clutch and the flywheel. So clean those up. I did Loctite into each one of those holes. That way the clutch doesn't back out. So clutch, flywheel, good. While I was at it, I also filled the trans with gear oil. That way I don't have to do it while it's in the car, which is kind of a pain. So got that stuff set up, and next I'll be cutting the transmission plate. Alright, so here is the raise plate. This is the stock transmission mount. I cut the nubs off a little bit. This is 1/4 inch steel plate. So this will get stitch welded in a couple spots. And then on the other side, it'll get stitch welded in a couple spots as well. On the edges, down underneath a little bit. So I still have a tiny bit of stuff to clean up on this, but there's a 2-inch raise plate. you see the stock hole, about 2 inches, exactly 2 inches from there to there. Same on this side. So we'll weld this up. I'm gonna make some plates that plate these off just to give it a little bit more strength. I did the same thing with my trans race, so it worked out really good. This plate, you know, the factory one is factory. It'll bolt in nice and easy. Eventually I will start making my own that more suit the Subaru motor. So until then, this is the way that I'll do it because it works good. I've never had any issue with it. I mean, you can cut a plate that's 4 inches, 1 inch, whatever you wanted to do. So we'll get this bolted to the trans and start getting it into the car. Alright guys, so that's all I have for you this week. As the week goes, this next week goes by, we should be getting in more parts. So beginning of next episode, we will get the transmission back in, maybe the motor, and we'll start probably running the coolant pipes. As parts come in, we'll start digging into other things like the fuel system, and other bits and pieces like that. So stay tuned with this one. It should be a fun little car when it's done. If you guys are interested in doing a swap, feel free to comment and I will get back to you, or you can go down to the description and I will leave my email address there. Feel free to email me with any questions, or if you guys are wanting a swap in your car, anything like that. So we will start bringing in more and more customer cars. At this point in time, I can only maybe house 1, maybe 2. So we'll keep pushing forward on that. I have one more lined up after I get done with this one, and then after that I should be free. So if you guys are interested, feel free to hit me up. Until the next video, peace out guys.